Let's get to a prop bet that we know everyone is going to have in their portfolio, and that is Super Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes is your favorite at plus 125. Brock Purdy at plus 225. Christian McCaffrey at plus 475. Everyone else is 12-1 or longer. That 12-1 is Travis Kelce. Debo at 20. Pacheco at 28. Rashee Rice at 50. Ayuk is at 60. Kittle is at 60. And then you start getting into defensive players. By the way, that's not going to happen. So don't worry about that. Don't waste your money. It is not going to be a defensive player. If we go back and take a look at your Super Bowl MVPs over the last several seasons, Patrick Mahomes, Cooper Kupp, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Julian Edelman, Nick Foles, Tom Brady, Von Miller. There was the one outlier there. It was the Von Miller in Super Bowl 50. Tom Brady, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. You get the point. It's a quarterback award. It's a quarterback award unless the quarterback did not have a game at all to write home, which is what happened with the Cooper Kupp year. It was just Cooper Kupp had all of the passing statistics were just all his way. He had 8 for 92 and 2 touchdowns, and that was the vast majority of the offense in that game for the Rams. And so that's why Cooper Kupp took it home. But Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy, your favorites for a reason.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, especially with Patrick Mahomes here. If Kansas City wins, he wins the MVP 98% of the time.
Yes.
I mean, so if you like Kansas City, you may want to just bet Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP versus betting money line, because you're getting a significantly better price on Patrick Mahomes winning the MVP. It would be very far-fetched to find a defensive player on Kansas City to be able to win this award. And if you're looking on the offensive side, the only person I think could win it outside of Mahomes is Pacheco.
Yeah.
And the thought process there is, look, if Rice has a big day or if Kelce has a big day, guess what? Mahomes got all of that yardage, all the touchdowns for him. So if you have any type of split there, even if Kelce goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns, if Rice goes for 75, Mahomes sitting there with 250 and 2 touchdowns, he's going to get the award, not Kelce.
And if you look, the reason that Pacheco is at least somewhat interesting, and we do not think that Pacheco is going to win, but if we're going to just kind of talk through this with everybody, there is a world that exists against a 49ers defense that has been susceptible to the run, that Kansas City tests out that run defense early, and it just works. And then they just go Pacheco. He finishes with 26 carries in the game, which is not out of the range of possibility. He had 24, already. He finishes with 26 carries, goes for 130 yards, scores 2 touchdowns. And with that, Patrick Mahomes just didn't have to do very much along the way. So there is a world that exists where that happens. Now, we don't think it's incredibly likely, but it's not wild. If we were sitting here reviewing the game and Pacheco, like we said, they test that defense early, it works, they just continue to do it, they win the Super Bowl, Pacheco has a huge, that's not crazy to us.
No, it's not. And the way that Mahomes doesn't win this is if he doesn't throw for any touchdown passes. If he doesn't throw for any touchdown passes and Kansas City wins, you got to assume Pacheco's got at least 2. And that's the route to where you could see someone besides Mahomes winning on Kansas City. I think it's far-fetched for anyone else to be able to win this award, just because wherever the points come from, if they're not coming from Pacheco, they're coming from Mahomes in one way, shape, or form. So for me, it's very open and shut on the Kansas City side. Only 2 players I'd have any interest at all. And honestly, the vast majority of the time, it's Mahomes, and I'd bet him over Kansas City money line to win this award because you're getting a much better price. I think it's wide open on the San Francisco side.
San Francisco's interesting because there are a lot of different worlds that exist that Purdy doesn't win.
Oh, I mean, you could have a big game from Samuel, you could have a big game from McCaffrey, both receiving and rushing. Let's say Samuel goes for 50 yards on the ground on 4 carries and goes for 100 yards through the air. He's got a very good shot. You've got McCaffrey sitting at 90 yards for his over-under in rushing, another 35 for his over-under in receiving. He could easily go 50 and 100. Yeah. He'd have a big shot if he has 2 touchdowns. And then you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, like Bosa would be the only guy I would even slightly consider here, but he's sitting at 75-1. There's a world where San Francisco wins this game. Purdy doesn't play well. The offense doesn't move the football. San Francisco wins 13-17, something like that. And it's Bosa who has a big defensive play and a defensive touchdown. Like, to me, the San Francisco route is significantly more interesting here than the Kansas City.
It's pretty tough because, as we mentioned, listen, if we talk about the explosive plays on that side of the ball, we know Ayuk had a 156-yard game this season. Debo Samuel had a 149-yard game this season. Even Kittle had a 149-yard game this season. So there are like massive games that are out there for all of these guys. But if you look at the box score with that, the vast majority of the offense was just those guys in those games. And so there is a world that exists in which Debo has another 148-yard game and Purdy only throws for 220 and it goes to Debo. Like, I mean, this has happened multiple times this season where one guy just ends up getting all of the bulk of the yardage and a lot of the other stuff isn't sprinkled around. It's really just one guy.
Well, and when San Francisco features a player a lot, and when they do feature any of these players, they have a big game. That's the guy who gets the most run. And when you look at the KC secondary, and you've got Snead on one side, who is an all-pro cornerback, the other side, young rookie corner. That's where you can take advantage of this defense. If you do have Debo, who's absolutely chewing him up, you're just going to keep going to that matchup every single time. You're not going to spread the football around, especially if Ayuk's on the other side with Snead on him. So there is a world where all of a sudden it's one guy. To me, Debo is the receiver I'd want because I think he gets the carries. And if he breaks one of those carries, all of a sudden there is a story for Debo. Let's say he goes, even if he goes for 25 on the ground and a rushing touchdown, 100 through the air and a touchdown, then a touchdown reception, he's going to have a very, very good case in this game to be MVP.
I weirdly kind of want to put a Kittle ticket in my account, but I'm not going to. But it's 60-1. And if we look, as we mentioned, so he had a 149-yard game this year, but he had a 126-yard game. He had a 116-yard game. He had a 96-yard game. He had multiple touchdowns in a couple of different games. And if I think that the route to defensive success for the Chiefs is utilize those corners very heavily and don't let them throw the perimeter, and that forces them, almost funnels the ball towards the middle of the field to the inside. Could we look at one of those games like he had versus Cincinnati, where he had 11 targets, he had 9 catches, he went for 149 yards? Like, could we see 10 targets for Kittle in this game? I don't think that's crazy.
I am worried that Kansas City is going to have McDuffie on him consistently, who is an all-pro cornerback in the slot. If they decide to man up McDuffie versus Bosa versus Kittle, that's going to take a little bit of the pop out of Kittle in my mind. The other issue with Kittle is he has the one game where he went for 146. Outside of that, he has been an ancillary piece. There's always been someone else who has gotten yards with him, which makes Purdy's stats look better. And if Purdy ends up throwing for 3 touchdowns, even if 2 are to Kittle and he's got $115, $120, it's going to be hard not to give it to Purdy in that case.
There's also a market for position to win Super Bowl MVP. Not one I'm jumping up and down to go bet. Quarterback is minus 265. I mean, like we said, it's very likely to go to a quarterback, but it's not a slam dunk on the San Francisco side, which is why I would just bet Mahomes, if I wanted to do something like this.
If you bet kicker, punter, long snapper, offensive lineman, hit me up on Twitter. I want to meet you because that is just those are should have another 0 at least.
Yeah, listen, guys. Let's just save you some dollars. I don't care if it's $2. I mean, I know some people say, no, I'm just going to put $2. It's still $2. Yeah. Put the $2 on some other bet. Do not bet a kicker, punter, long snapper. Any
interest in a little splash on running back? McCaffrey and Pacheco both are live.
They are both live, for sure. I think that 380 would be, let's put it this way. If I had to make a bet on that screen, it would be the plus 380 on the running back.